Dorina Lazo Gilmore-Young is an author, speaker, Bible teacher, and a spoken word artist. And in her new book, Chasing God's Glory, young Zayla follows her mom on a quest to acknowledge and experience God's glory in their everyday life. So welcome to the bookmark, Dorina.
Thank you so much. It's a delight to be here.
So how would you explain what glory is to kids? Or better yet, what were the 3 questions that you sought to answer with this book?
Well, honestly, part of the reason I wrote this book is because that concept of glory can feel so weighty. And even for adults, it's kind of hard to talk about. And so that idea of what exactly is glory, that drives the book. And I actually started by writing a Bible study years ago that was about glory. It was called Glory Chasers, and it was for adults, mostly women, who went through that study. And so it was looking at all the examples of God's glory that is in the Bible, in creation, in our actual lives, even in our suffering. And then a friend of mine actually challenged me to write it as a children's book. Like, what would you do if you're teaching this to your kids, which is actually something I've done in real life because I have 3 daughters. So answering that core question is what the storyline of this book is all about.
I love that. And it's true that kids, and not just kids, but adults, but we sing these songs with the word glory, and it can kind of get passed over because we're not really understanding it, but it is a weighted thing, and that's not bad. We should understand the weight of it. So going back to this devotional, the study then, what does it mean to chase glory?
Well, it's good for us to kind of clarify because in our culture, so often people are chasing after personal glory. And we see that in the celebrity culture. We see that in the way that we kind of elevate people because they are, award winning, or because they never rest and are workaholics and, different types of values. But what I'm talking about here is looking for God's glory in everything that we do. And actually that we get to be arrows pointing back to his glory with the way that we live our lives. And so, as you described in the beginning, the book is about Zayla and her mom going on a glory hunt. They hop on their bikes. They are riding through the city. They are riding through a local park. They're looking for God in the sunrise, in the empanadas that they get to taste at the farmer's market, and even in a conversation that's about grief because Zayla's dad has gone to heaven. So it's not just a grief book. It's really a book about learning how to seek God's glory in your everyday.
I'm glad that you actually commented on it being a grief book, because I do think that that's a really hard thing to understand. But you put this emphasis on asking questions. So how do you want to encourage this? Not just parents listening, but even for you as a mom, like how important is that?
Yeah, that's something that is a really high value for me as a parent and as a mom. My children, their dad actually went to heaven. It's 9 years ago now. He died of cancer. He was diagnosed in May of 2014 and died in September. And so my girls were ages 2, 5, and 8 at that time. He was a healthy guy. I mean, we just did not see that coming at all. And in our home, I really felt like it was important to create an environment where they could ask questions because they were sitting in the midst of tragedy. They were surrounded by community and, families that were whole and had mommy and daddy. And so I needed them to be able to ask, what is heaven like? Why did God allow this hard thing to happen? Like, why do we have to go through suffering? Those are key questions to shaping our theology, no matter what age we're at. And actually, it's so much a part of the tradition that's in the Bible to ask questions. Jesus even was a model for us of that. He would ask questions and he would use those questions as a way to hear people's stories, sometimes even to call out their sin, but to show them that he loved them deeply. And questions are even a way that we can call out injustices that we see in the world. And so at our dinner table, in our car, as we go on walks, I encourage my girls to ask questions. I tell them, mommy doesn't always have the answers. If I don't have an answer, we're going to go on the treasure hunt in the Bible, even through prayer, to find those answers. And God is so good to meet us in our questions. He's not afraid of our questions. And I don't want my kids to be afraid of asking them.
That's such a great takeaway. Obviously, this is such a personal book for you, very much reflects your family, and you are a self-proclaimed glory chaser. How has this looking for glory really impacted your relationship? Because we see this in the book too, but yeah, what has it done for a mother-daughter relationship?
Oh, I love that question. One of the ways that I feel like I receive comfort and I connect with God is through creation. I'm one of those people who just loves to be outside. We live not too far from the mountains and Yosemite National Park here in Central California. And so we have these gorgeous sunsets. I wake up and I see the little line of the mountains, the Sierra Nevadas out my window, and we live near several lakes. And so even when my girls were little, I would take them on these kind of informal glory hunts. And that was one of the ways that we felt like God was comforting us. So I even think about like one of our traditions after my husband went to heaven is that every night we would go out together and we would watch the sunset. And it was just, it became almost this spiritual practice. At first, my girls were kind of like, Mom, the sun sets every night. Like, why do we have to do this? But now they are glory chasers. They're teenagers. They're 12, 14, and 17. And they're the ones who, like, even if we're not together, they're texting me like, Mom, look at this gorgeous sunset, because we've done that through the years. And I think it's really a practice of pausing and lifting our eyes and seeing God at work all around us.
I love that. As we wrap up, really in conclusion, is there something that you want to leave listeners with? Anything else you want to add? Maybe give a plug for your study that might be relevant as people listening right now are saying, yeah, I want to raise glory chasers too.
Well, I love talking about this with parents and really kids of all ages. I would say, enjoy this book. I've had people say, my teenager loved your book, or even grandmas who don't, necessarily read children's books who are like, this ministered to me. So I would love it if you would hop onto my website, DorinaGilmore.com. You can learn more about some of the ways that I teach people to be glory chasers, whether it be through Bible studies or my weekly newsletter, which is called my Glorygram. And I love the opportunity to connect with people more personally.
Yeah, it's a way of life. It's a posture, and the book inspires it for kids too. Chasing God's Glory, Dorina Lazo Gilmore-Young. Thank you so much for sharing your story and encouraging us to chase God's glory.
Thank you.